All right.
Good to go.
Episode 2, Daily Life Activities that Transfer to Aviation and the Art of the Chair Fly. All right. So some of you are probably already training as a pilot in your everyday life, and you don't just realize it. And some of you are probably trying to train to be a pilot, and you're doing things in the car, and you start realizing, hey, some of the things I learned in the cockpit, I'm already doing in the car, and vice versa. So, and then the second part of this, we're going to go into, you could be saving hundreds, if not thousands of dollars by learning to chair fly, or actively employed on the ground if you're not already doing that. But first, let's get into it. Segment 1, daily life skills that transfer to aviation. Have you ever gone hunting? You ever been hunting yourself?
Yeah, when I was much younger.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of noticed this season, and I wanted to bring it up when we talked one time, is I was out in stillness, completely out in the forest, stillness, and your brain is always, your five senses are always engaged. You're always looking for some sort of movement. You're trying to break up patterns. You're trying to use your nose even to smell for things. You're feeling for things. And I just kind of came to realize how true that is in aviation. I can remember when I used to fly the Black Hawk, you'd be listening, you'd be smelling for things. If something smells off even, you would detect that. But purely in generally aviation world, it might be, a VFR scan. Do you remember when we were flying back from Mammoth and we saw those airplanes doing the acrobatics?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I picked it up, but I've been hunting for years. My brain is kind of keen to that. And so what got me thinking was not everyone is initially going to have that scan down, and not saying you don't. You've been flying for a long time.
Oh, you nailed it. I actually thought they were birds because they were doing loops.
Yeah, you're like, huh?
I was like,
Seagulls playing with each other.
Big condors or something off the coast.
Yeah.
They
So
were
my point
biplanes.
is like you kind of gain an acuity for it over time. You're eventually going to start developing the brain that looks for these things in the air. So if you first start off, a VMC pilot, and your instructor or what have you sees something and you're looking for a solid 5 minutes and the plane goes whooshing by and you're like, how did you see that?
Yeah.
Well, he or she's been doing that for years. So it's something that comes with time, right? But things that can help improve it, things like hunting. I grew up spearfishing and bird hunting, and my brain's just already kind of acuity for looking for moving things. So we're going to come into some more examples of daily life activities that you might be employing already in the cockpit. Another one is driving in traffic. Have you ever?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So have you ever been, just driving in traffic and all of a sudden somebody swerves in front of you and you weren't really prepared for it because you didn't know they were even next to you in the first place, right? We all have, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I've realized as, a motorcycle rider now, I've had to really just maintain situational awareness of
Oh, yeah, big
everything
time.
that's
Yeah.
around me, especially here in Southern California,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So an example of that too, as I was going down the interstate one time, I was in the number 1 lane going, about 70, 75 miles an hour. And this car, I had already kind of sensed him over in my blind spot because I'm always looking at mirrors, always kind of just having an awareness of what's around me. All of a sudden he jams on the accelerator and just cuts right into my lane. Doesn't even really see me. I'm like, how do you not even see me? But come on, Buck.
There you go.
Looks like
Come join
Buck
the
wants to
party.
join us. This guy comes right in front of me, right? And immediately I have to panic over into the emergency lane. I wasn't able to do that unless I kind of already had a sixth sense that he was in this blind spot. And
About to do that.
Yeah, about
Right.
to do that. And that's another thing in aviation is always giving yourself an out, always giving yourself a way to identify a hazard before it's even there, and then think about how you're going to respond.
I feel like there is a
It's
lot of
worse.
overlap with aviation and driving motorcycles because I don't know about you, but whenever I'm on a bike, I always feel like I have to be a little bit more of a offensive driver instead of a defensive driver. So it's like, let's go ahead and try to get in an area where you have options. You have an open lane. I don't want to be pinned between two like semi trucks.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's just go ahead
Give
and get in
yourself
front of these
options.
people and get out. And I feel like when we're flying a lot of times, you might see an airplane on radar that's, coming basically directly at you, maybe 500 feet below or something. You don't see them, and you're not sure if it's like a hallucination on the GPS or if they're just there and you're just blind to them, or if they're in your blind spot or something. And you try to like go ahead and anticipate it and figure, okay, well, there's the right of way rules, but they're turning this way, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn this way and climb, or this
Yeah.
way and dive. So there's a lot of like, let's try to avoid problems.
No, I'm glad you brought that up too, because in the military, we call it threat to map pairing.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically like, yeah, here's what I'm seeing on the radar, But how do I transpose that, for lack of a better term, into the real airspace and be able to see, like, here's what it says on the radar, but where do I see it in this 3D plane, right?
Right.
Like on a car, it's easy, right? Because we're on a 2D plane.
For sure.
And you're like, okay, there's a car here, here, and like you can build up this kind of awareness on a 2D plane. Aviation, it's not the case. You have above, 3D. So that's where, you're looking on your map, you're looking at the plus or -5. And, depending on how fast you're going, plus -5 is not that much space to react, right? Even
It's probably.
just that rate of closure can be so quick. And that's why, we don't just rely on our TCAS or our map to understand where potential threats are. You're also using your eyeballs, because that's going to save you, especially in VMC.
I did want to say, you were talking about kind of a good scan originally. Like, I seem to remember there's like a difference between like daytime and nighttime, how you want to do a scan. Like you use your peripheral vision more for one versus
Good
the
point.
other. I can't remember which one's which, but it's like, I think at nighttime, it's like you're supposed to focus. At nighttime you use the peripheral, and daytime you're supposed to like focus on individual points or something.
Yeah, you're getting to it, and it's all due to what we call autokinesis.
Okay.
Right? And so when I got my night vision qualification in Pensacola, it's not just, learning how to use a night vision goggle. It's really just learning about all the physiological things that happen at night. And autokinesis is a real thing. What they would do is they take us into a dark room, and then they have you stare at this light, essentially, just this dim light, for all of 5 seconds. And I kid you not, it would just start moving.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. It's like out of Paranormal Activity
that's
kind of
freaky.
thing. You're like, what is going on? So basically what autokinesis is, in the absence of other cues to gauge depth and all that stuff, and let's say it's completely dark out, moonless night, and all you have is just that one light that's coming at you, or maybe there's no relative motion to it. Things that have it'll start gaining relative motion.
Start moving around.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that could be like city lights or other traffic.
Primarily things without any kind of contour around it. So where it
Okay.
can bite you in the butt is if like you're flying around 6,000 feet over the coast and there's another airplane out there. Sure, it's moving, but you're staring at it. Well, it's not giving you an accurate depiction of which way it's moving anymore. Right. So that's why keep your eyes moving. If you do see a potential target or a traffic or whatever, like keep your eyes on it and scan around it. Don't be just like fixated on like, And what does your brain naturally want to do though?
Just stare right at it.
Just stare at it, right?
Shiny object.
Yeah, shiny object. It's basically like, Dory in Finding Nemo, like, ooh, like that. Well, that's how it's, you're going to get eaten by an anglerfish. So same thing in flying airplanes, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just like in a car or just like in aviation, a good pilot's always thinking one step ahead. It's that defensive but aggressive driving, thinking, hey, what is that driver going to do? Thinking kind of in human behavior
Like,
terms.
this person's going to merge on me. Let's get out of their way. Or let's, get out of their blind spot at least.
Yeah.
Get up some or slow down. And,
Yeah,
so
and the same thing applies in aviation. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. At first, like when you learned an instrument scan, when I was teaching, you have the hub and wheel, or however people teach nowadays. It takes active work to kind of make your eyes, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But now, like after you do it enough, it's second nature, right? Like, I have probably just over 200 hours of instrument time now. And like the scan is second nature. But when I was first starting off, I had to remember, okay, the instructor said, look at airspeed. Then he said, look at these 2 other things. In my eyes, I'm like, I'm having to remember what he told me, but also do it at the same time. And then eventually it becomes automatic with practice. Gotcha. So just like in a car. So for anyone that's going through instrument training right now, and you're feeling kind of frustrated with your progression with your scan or whatever, I would say just keep practicing. Because just like in a car, something as simple as a lane change. Well, I'm not saying the instrument scan is as easy as a lane change, but I am saying that the brain, the neural plasticity and all that,
into patterns.
it picks up on
the
those
muscle
patterns.
memory of a instrument scan.
Yeah.
Is there one sort of instrument scan that you recommend? Because I know like there is the hub and spoke, but there's also, I think there's a few other methods too, if I remember right. But
No, there's a lot of them out there, and it's kind of whatever works best for you. But I always start with airspeed.
Okay.
And I could go through why my technique is great and everything, and I'm happy to do that. It'll take a whole 15 minutes. But the number one parameter most instructors are going to tell you, I'm not a double I, but the number one parameter most instructors are going to tell you to look at first is airspeed, right? Airspeed's life, so why wouldn't you look at that first?
Right.
It tells you so much more about what your airplane's doing.
So you kind of bounce like airspeed, attitude, airspeed, vertical airspeed,
Yeah,
so
you're looking. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're looking at your pitch, looking at you dead in the face, your attitude indicator, but then you're cross-checking that with your airspeed and making sure that makes sense, right?
gotcha. Okay.
And then you back that up with your VSI, which to make sure that the airspeed makes sense, right? And then there's secondary things like your heading, and then your CDI, even looking at your left or right, of course. That's even a tertiary thing. If you have autopilot, you're hoping that thing's doing a good job, and you're
Right.
cross-checking what your headliners are saying or whatever.
Gotcha.
All right, let's go into team sports. So, I don't really play pickup sports as much as I would like to / used to, but I'll bring up flag football, right? So I can't tell you how many times I've rolled into a new crew. In my business right now, nowadays, you're not flying with the same pilot all the time, the same
Right.
flight attendants all the time. Same thing with a game of pickup, flag football. You're not always going to be playing with the same people, the same team. And so, how does ordinary life transcend into aviation? Well, building those social skills to be able to play a team sport and then roll up to a crew and quickly adapt to, maybe not even adapt, but enjoy being with
Oh.
with those people that you're with and making things work. Learning teamwork is an important thing. And then on an aviation standpoint, just communication. That I can't tell you how many times accidents have occurred because somebody didn't want to speak up. Buck's speaking up right now, right?
Right.
Buck's telling us information right now. But yeah, it's the same thing. Communication breakdown can sometimes break down an airplane, literally. So, team sports out there, that's one that cross-pollinates to aviation really well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Next one I have, and you're gonna laugh at this: video games. Did you play
Yeah.
video games growing up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie, like I played a lot of Need for Speed growing up, and I have done some racing on the track in a car, and like a lot of the stuff that you get rewarded for on an actual race in a video game, it's the same thing in real life when you're actually racing. Now I'm not saying you're racing an airplane, so to speak, but as far as looking at your map data and being able to understand what the map is telling you versus what the airplane is
Right.
doing, I feel like video games kind of help set me up there. So
Oh,
for our younger audience, that's a thing. Video games help in that hand-eye coordination.
Right.
all
Get a
that
flight
stuff.
simulator.
Yeah,
you
get
know?
a flight simulator.
Like, oh,
Turns out that, as you might start realizing here, instrument flying is one big video game.
oh
So,
yeah. Seems like it.
yeah. What we're about to do, we're about to cook a steak after this, right? And a few other things, right? Cooking a complex meal. I am not a good cook. So I would be showing my own ass if I said that cooking cross-pollinates the aviation, but being able to balance multiple activities at once, obviously, that's
Right.
going to be an important thing in aviation, especially when you get into the IFR structure. You're balancing radios, you're balancing what the airplane is doing. Aviate, navigate, communicate, right?
Right.
You're balancing what the airplane's doing, running checklists for the airplane. Then you're balancing where you're navigating to next. And then you got, comms coming in.
Oh,
you have
yeah.
to do all the three things at once,
All at the same time.
all
Yeah.
at the same time. It's like having multiple pots on the stove, right?
Yeah, I think there's like a silly saying that the PHAC even has about instrument flying, and it's like the three primary tenets of instrument flying is instrument cross check is number one. Sorry, instrument cross check. Second is instrument interpretation, and then third is aircraft control or something like that. And just right there, that's not even throwing comms in,
Yeah.
or anything, but it's like there is a lot of burners on at one time, essentially, as far as for the cooking reference. So
Yeah, it's it's balancing all those tasks you have to do in the airplane. But if any of those get out of balance, what do you think is the most important?
flying the airplane.
Flying the
Yeah,
airplane, right?
so, yeah.
I mean, this one time we were coming into Teterboro, and we had a flap issue, a flap malfunction.
Oh yeah.
And we were in IMC, and we got thrown off on short final because we were focusing on the flaps, and they said correct right, of course, and we did. But at that point, we just declared an emergency immediately
Yeah.
because we weren't
You're in
able to
IMC,
handle
so-
the navigation structure. We wanted to focus on the airplane first. So we went around, we did the miss approach and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
Now we came up with a new set of navigation, but during all that, I'm figuring out what's going on with the airplane. Pilot flying now at this point is handling flying the airplane, right? And so
Right.
that's that CRM, crew resource management, breaking apart who's doing what, and communication now becomes paramount, right? So that's another example there. Next one I have is backpacking / hiking / outdoor sports, risk management and planning. On a future episode, we'll do a whole thing on risk management, one of my
Gotcha.
favorite things
Yeah.
to talk about. But I'll give a shout out to this book called Deep Survival by Lawrence Gonzalez. I think every aviator should read that book. Not because it doesn't have much to do with aviation at all, but a lot of it has to do with risk analysis, and it'll change the way you think. The book itself is about survival psychology, and a big part of that book talks about checking weather, checking your route, how much daylight you have, redundancies, all that stuff. And I think that if you are an avid outdoorsman or gal, and you're doing a lot of stuff in the outdoors, you're already gonna have a brain that's wired for the what ifs, right? What if the weather shits the bed?
Right.
What if the route that you think you're on is not actually the route? How far into the route do we keep going before we turn around? Hey, what's our plan B? What's our plan C? Those kind of things. Knowing when to turn back early versus forcing a bad decision. So that feeds into that whole aeronautical decision-making piece.
Right, for sure.
And I have a story on that too. I was flying into Big Bear one time, and it was after a storm. The ceilings there were probably, a good 2,500 feet, some pretty marginal VFR, but we were getting in there and had to fly a pretty tight pattern over the lake there.
Yeah.
So we didn't go into the clouds, but also in the mountains, right? It's a bowl canyon.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to fly to the north because I got mountains there that I could crash into. I'm not going to fly to the south because even we have Mount San Gorgonio.
Yeah.
Even bigger, right?
And the ski resort.
And the ski resort. Like, I'm not trying to go skiing in an airplane, right?
Yeah.
So, and then, we call up the traffic, Big Bear traffic, and actually the airport manager comes on the radio and he's like, hey, just be advised, the runway is still quite icy.
Oh.
So at that point, I'm like, there's too many holes in the proverbial Swiss cheese model.
Right.
I got clouds above me. I can't climb really. I can't deviate laterally to the north or the south. I got ice on the runway. I don't know if I can even make this landing.
Yeah, you might slide all over the place.
Yeah, slide over, go off the runway. So I did a quick, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going back.
Let's get out of here.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. I had 4 people on board. Is it worth could I have gotten in there? Yeah. Make it a really good soft field landing. But is the juice worth the squeeze? No.
No.
I'm just going to go home. Call it a day. Live to fight another day, right?
For sure. Yeah, probably a good call there.
Yeah. So that's mountain flying for you.
Yeah.
The last life activity or daily thing we do that might cross-pollinate into aviation is for those parents out there, caregivers or teachers. Your workload management and be able to be calm under pressure. When you have 1, 2, 3, 4 kids screaming at you or whatever, and you're just trying to do your daily life things, and you're trying to keep cool under pressure. Well, I have plenty of stories where ATC or your JTAC, your Joint Terminal Air Controller, is screaming at you over the radio, and maybe not screaming, but they're trying to get your attention. You're also trying to fly the airplane. You're also trying to navigate the thing, and you just get what we call a helmet fire. You're like, what is going on? So now we have to break apart priority 1, flying the airplane, figuring out what piece of communications we need to dial in first, and then also navigate. Where is this airplane going? Hopefully you're thinking ahead of the airplane, but also being able to rectify the situation and figure out where you're going to go from there. Come on, Buck. So those are kind of some daily life activities that I've found. So all this to be said, if you're on the fence about flight training, you might already be building the skills that you need to become a pilot. Or if you're already a pilot, you might already be building those skills when you're in the cockpit to bring into your daily life. This is a journey. I'm not the best I could be as a pilot, not the best I could be as, husband and father. That kind of comes with time. So be patient with it and, stick to the process. So we kind of already talked about daily life activities that cross-pollinate to the cockpit. This one is going to be how being a pilot changes the way you drive. I know we already talked about driving and motorcycle and all that stuff, but specifically, you just started your instrument syllabus. Did you notice certain cues you were picking up on more in the car, or certain ways you were processing information as you were driving?
Well, yeah, I guess. So I drive an FJ Cruiser, and it's fortunately a pretty cool old car that has a heading indicator on the dash.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
might sound a little
Yeah,
wild.
it even
But
has like a pitch thing on it too,
yeah,
right? For when
literally,
you're climbing up a hill.
it's got a pitch.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got a like a turn coordinator, essentially.
That's cool.
So, with that, whenever there's a lot of hills out here in San Diego, so whenever I'm driving up Torrey Pines to work every day, it's like, cool, you can kind of do a little bit of an instrument scan, watch the RPM, obviously watch your airspeed or the
Yeah.
ground speed, and then, let's look at the pitch. How much nose up are we? And so,
Yeah, and speaking on
yeah.
that too, like you're kind of talking about energy management, right?
Exactly.
You know that big hill on Delmar Heights Road coming out of the
yeah.
beach?
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
exactly
for the
the one I'm
viewers
talking
that are
about.
watching, it's probably like a 20%. No, it's not that much, but it is like a 15% grade, right?
Yeah, it's pretty steep.
Yeah. So let's say you're following a car up that and they start slowing down. Do you have to slow down sooner or later than you normally would on flat ground? Well, you can slow down later because I guess technically you have gravity to help slow you down.
Right.
Well, what if you're going down a hill and you're following someone and you see brake lights, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to put on those brakes sooner
Absolutely.
than you would later, so you don't go plowing in the car ahead of you. So how that changes you as a driver? Well, coming up on to, let's say you see a light ahead of you. It's green, but you can kind of just sense that it's going to turn red soon. So you start maybe slowing down, and so you don't go blowing through a red light. Well, it's the same thing in aviation. It's timing your descents. It's timing
Yeah.
your energy, your
Yeah, I was about to say,
airspeed,
it
your
sounds
altitude.
like you're describing energy management.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So there's a lot of things in driving that will cross-pollinate to flying an airplane. Constant speed propeller.
Yeah.
We were coming in the downwind the other day, and you're like, at what point do we bring the blue handle in?
Yeah.
Or you weren't asking me, but you're like, should we do it now? And I'm like, well, it's up to you. You're kind of getting a feel for energy management, right? Well, bringing the blue handle in, it's going to come to more flat pitch. The airplane's going to decelerate, right? So those are all the kind of things to think about. Putting the blue handle in is kind of like slowly bringing on the brakes, or
Right.
just letting off on the accelerator
Yeah.
in your car. That's a form of slowing down.
I mean, if you're driving a manual, I guess it could be akin to dropping it to a lower gear. Like
Yeah.
you get some of the engine braking.
Yep, going down that same hill we were talking
Yep.
about, right? Like, this is a skill you can carry home next time you go driving down a big hill, right? That little L button on
Yeah.
your stick shifter? Well, that thing, for you viewers out there, that exists for a reason, right? If we're going down a hill, we'll let the engine do the braking and not all of your brakes, right? Shift it into low gear, the engine's going to wind up and slow you down.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing.
Save your brake pads.
Yep, save your brake pad. It's the same thing as pushing that blue handle in, right?
Yeah.
It's basically like if you have a big descent to do and you want to put the brakes on, bring that blue handle in, and now all of a sudden we're slowing down by virtue of the fact that the blade's going to a finer pitch. So, and that being said, constant speed propeller is just like a stick shift. So for my manual drivers out there, which, by the way, I did a quick study on that. It's, what did I write down? I saw that only about 15% of Americans are stick shift drivers.
Wow.
Nowadays. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. Me being one of them, I still own a little Toyota
Yeah,
Tacoma
good for
pre-runner.
you.
And I'm glad I learned how to stick shift though. Like there's a lot more things you have to think about while you're driving. It's kind of helped with aviation, just being able to open up your brain, neuroplasticity, and that mind space. So the next one I'll talk about is sterile cockpit driving habits, right? And so we've all done it. I've done it plenty of times. Being a texter and a driver, how many times have you gotten into a near miss with texting and driving? Can you count?
More than I'd like to admit.
Yeah. I mean, I can probably count on one hand.
Yeah.
But that's enough times for me to be like, yeah, maybe I don't need to be doing that anymore. Another statistic I read is texting and driving accounts for 12 to 13% of crash fatalities in America. And it also, on that same dialogue, it said you're 20 to 23 times more likely to crash or near crash while texting and driving. Well, we're talking about driving, right? Let's get back to aviation. There are a lot of things that shouldn't be done in the cockpit while we're taxiing, while we're in a cruise climb, while we're in cruise even, and there's nothing going on. There's just certain things you shouldn't be doing. And so, taxiing in the line in Montgomery, very busy, right?
Oh yeah, very busy.
So obviously we're not going to be on our phones there unless we're doing specific aviation tasks. But even then, pilot flying is going to be heads outside.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's other things too that can bite you in the butt. How about
Well, that's something that I've noticed a couple times is even just messing with the avionics in the plane on taxi. It's just like hang out, do that during the run up, like you
Yeah.
know while you're driving on the taxiway. There's no sense to be setting what your next
yeah?
bearing's gonna be.
And this is
or altitude.
Montgomery too, right?
Yeah.
Where 95% of the time you're going to get the same taxi clearance.
Right.
Juliet Hotel Bravo, Juliet
Yeah.
Hotel Alpha, right?
That's pretty much it.
How hard is that? That can't be very hard, but it is hard in the essence that there's a lot of other tasks you have to complete before you put this thing in the air.
Just staying on center line, It's
Yeah,
like,
that's not that hard, but like think about like you got other airplanes taxiing in the line.
Right.
You got Tower, they do their best. Shout out to Montgomery Tower. They do a great job up there. But when you're coming out on Juliet to turn on a hotel, you got an aircraft inbound. Well, maybe they forgot to have them hold there. They do their
Right.
best, but they're humans too, right? So you might have to think like, hey, who's going to have right away here? So you're not going to have that wherewithal and that situational awareness unless your head's outside and you're actively thinking one step ahead of what they're doing, right? So the sterile cockpit thing is a real thing, and that's why I choose not to text and drive anymore. If I feel like there's a point where I need to be texting and driving a lot, I'm just not going to drive. Same thing with flying. It's if there's something that I have to handle with the company or whatever, they can wait.
Yeah.
They can wait. We'll wait till we get up to cruise and we're on Wi-Fi, and then we'll text. So the sterile cockpit rule definitely plays an effect. So risk envelope and conservative decisions. So like I said, we're going to cover risk management later on in another podcast. But some things you can do to help whittle down risk a little bit is leaving earlier, avoiding marginal weather,
Oh yeah.
and saying no to sketchy situations, right? So just like you wouldn't text and drive because that makes we just read off the statistics, you're 20 to 23 times more likely. Well, say no to sketchy situations, that's a laundry list of what you call sketchy, right?
Oh yeah.
And again, we're going to go over risk another time, but building up your comfort envelope is going to help you diagnose what's a real threat and what is something is actually can be mitigated, right? So all these things to be said, this driving and flying, you may not realize it, but you're already building up aeronautical decision making early on just by driving. If you're a good driver, if you're a reckless driver, maybe you shouldn't go in a cockpit. Right. I actually just watched a movie. It's with who is it? It's a racing movie, F1. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So the German racer, he's in the car with his girlfriend after getting picked up by these two Italian guys, and his girlfriend keeps egging him on, like, drive faster. And he's like, why would I? I'm just increasing the risk when I'm not even getting paid for it.
Right.
And there's a higher chance of us running off the road. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, why would you buy risk when there's no need for it? You're not getting paid for it, whatever, So that goes into that whole cost benefit thing, which we'll get into another time. But goes to show, even in driving, it parallels to aviation. He later on in the movie, he sees Chris Hemsworth. It's with Chris Hemsworth.
Right.
Later on in the movie, towards the very end, this German race car driver, he buys himself a private jet and he gets his private pilot's license. He's flying that thing around. He says to Chris, he's like, "Hey, you should get your pilot's license because what this teaches you is strict adherence to rules and regulations, and basically edges out ego. Like you can't have ego when you're inside of an airplane." So I thought that was kind of funny. These race car drivers, race jockeys.
Yeah.
This dude's turned into a full-blown airplane driver, and he appreciates the fact that as an aviator, you just can't have an ego.
Yeah.
It's how you kill people. Segment 3, the art of chair flying and why it will save you money. Not if it will save you money, why it will save you money. So I'm going to go into what it is, why it works, and how to do it. So when you're going through private pilot, how much could you say that you chair flew? Be honest.
Well,
You already graduated, so.
yeah, I chair flew quite a bit, but the way I did it was with a simulator. So
Yeah.
I think that counts.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. So here's my caveat to sim training. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I have graduated quite a few students. The sim is really going to help you with basic airwork stuff. But as far as the landings go, like the depth perception. It's not always there.
For sure. The landings are crap in a simulator still.
Yeah.
Microsoft needs to do something about that. They don't know what. Cut that out.
Well, the other thing too with the simulator too is the seat of your pants, right?
Yeah, it's totally not there.
Yeah, and going back to that race car movie, I thought the German driver at one point, he's like, the girlfriend asked him like, why are you so good at racing or whatever? And he's like, God's gifted me with a very sensible butt, and that's why it makes me really good at driving.
true.
Basically what he's saying is he can feel the race car, right? Well, you can feel the airplane. When you're going into a turn and you shut your eyes, you can feel the G-forces on your butt. You can feel the perilymph, the fluid in your ear shifting to one direction. You feel you're in a turn. All these cues you're getting when you're actually in an airplane versus in a simulator, it's just not there in a simulator, right?
I will say, I'd like your opinion on this, but
In a static simulator, not a full motion.
right.
Yeah.
But in a static simulator, let's say you're worried about disorientation during IFR flight. If you are strictly using a simulator, it does in a way make you rely on your instruments even more.
Yeah.
So it can maybe help train you to trust your instruments. Essentially, if you do feel like you're getting in a situation with your inner ears playing tricks on you, or you're getting a little disoriented, what do you think about that?
No, absolutely. That's a really good question. Vertigo. So this one time I was flying, I was in the Black Hawk at the time. We were flying back into North Island. We were setting up for runway 36 there. It's an ILS, I think. Setting up for the ILS, and we were getting vectored around because there was an F-18 in front of us, so obviously they're faster than us. But we're getting vectored around. We're in pretty heavy IMC, as the coast gets here. And, now they give us a climb and turn command, right?
Okay.
And, I will say, flying IFR in a helicopter is much harder than a fixed wing. You pull the power and the nose is going to go one direction. And all of a sudden you're having to step on the ball and, make all these other inputs just to make the airplane or the helicopter level, right?
Wow.
And so now I'm climbing and I'm turning to the right and I can kind of see some dark underneath me. Even though I'm on the gauges, I'm still getting a little bit distracted by the stuff below me.
Makes sense.
And all of a sudden I feel like we're in a left turn and we're actually going right. So I actually kind of felt my body just kind of like doing what it wants or doing what it feels like is the opposite direction, but my gauges aren't lining up with what my body feels, right?
Right.
So at that point, I'm in a climbing right turn, but all of a sudden I slowly start correcting back to the left, and I realize, wait, we're not turning right anymore. And at that point, my co-pilot, she's like, come right. And I'm like, wait, I am coming right. Even though I'm coming left now.
Yeah.
Because left feels like right? Because I'm leaned out, I have vertigo.
Something, yeah.
So we use a 2 challenge rule. So the first challenge, she's like, come right. I'm like, I am coming right. And then I looked at my gauge, I'm like, I'm not coming right. But at that point, I realized I have vertigo.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm leaned out. You have controls, right? I just dumped the controls to her, and I let her fly, and she bailed us out because she still had a good brain. But I was leaned out. I had vertigo. So sometimes you'll recognize the onset of vertigo. Sometimes your co-pilot, which they usually are, they're pilot monitoring, and they're making sure that what ATC told you to do is what the pilot flying is actually doing.
Right. Wow.
And that's why it's important when you're in the IMC structure and you do have a co-pilot, you really are monitoring, because the leans, man, it's something that it's insidious and it'll sneak up on you. I don't care how many hours you have.
Yeah.
You do get better at trusting your gauges and responding appropriately over time. But, you can be in environments where it was a night out too, by the way. You can be in really bad environments where it's pitch black out, you're in the clouds, and you have these bright screens in front of you. It can be very easy to disagree with what you're feeling versus what the gauges are saying.
Yeah.
So, great example there. But we were talking about chair flying, so let's go back into that. So what is chair flying? So it's mentally flying the profile on the ground, practicing your flows, your call outs, your switch work, and your radios, right? It's simple as that.
That's what I like about the sim, because I do have all the switches you use in the cockpit. So
Yeah.
you have you even have flaps.
And that's great too. And so I'll say, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but having your cockpit printout in front of you is even if you can't be flipping switches, at least having it in front of you.
I definitely like those posters that the cockpit printouts.
You go to CAE, the training facility for corporate flying. They have this room called the Paper Tiger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but it's called the Paper Tiger. It's literally just a paper cockpit printout, and guys are using this to get their
Type ratings
multi-thousand
on
dollar type
jets and
ratings, right?
stuff?
And it
Yeah.
works because it works, right?
Right.
Because it costs money to put you in the simulator,
Oh, yeah.
like a lot. So practice this on a paper thing for free before we go into a simulator and start paying the big bills. So that's what it is. It's practicing stuff on the ground such that when you get in the cockpit, you've already familiarized yourself with it.
Cool.
It can be done in your bedroom. It can be done in your hotel. It can be done in your car, if it's parked, of course. It can be done in an FBO. It can be done in a lobby. It can be done anywhere. So yeah, we talked about getting the printout. Did you know that the Blue Angels, for crying out loud,
Right.
before almost every single hop, they sit in a room, just like a classroom. They have lead in the front or whatever. He's doing his call-outs. They all have their eyes shut, and they're visualizing these maneuvers before
really?
they go and actually do it. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what they told us down in Pensacola, because they're like, the way you're going to get through this, and you're not going to get washed out of the program, is by chair flying. Like, that's
Really?
how serious they were about
They
it.
lean on it that much.
They lean on it that much.
That's good.
It's you got to study with a partner if you want to learn this vast amount of material you have to learn, and you have to chair fly. It's not a we're getting paid. We're paid students at this point, so they're not asking us. They're telling us you will chair fly, right? And so, why does it work? Well, I'm going to first read a quote here.
That's cool.
So
I feel a little less silly chair flying now.
No.
Knowing the Blue Angels do it.
It feels silly the first time you chair fly,
Yeah.
and you shut your eyes and you're pretending doing things, even with nobody around you, and just hearing yourself say things out loud, you're going to be like,
Flaps spin.
this is weird. Yeah, you're going to be like, huh? Like, why am I? It just feels weird.
Yeah.
But if you do it enough, it's just going to become normal, and then all of a sudden you're going to realize when you get in the cockpit, you're going to be like, wow, I am drastically improving quick, and I'm getting to my goals a lot quicker than if I wasn't doing that. And we'll hit on that in a bit.
For your last type rating, how much chair flying do you think you did in hours
Man.
to learn that jet and everything?
Yeah. So the G4 is notorious for having just the system checks. The startup flow is notorious for having a lot of checklist items,
Really?
right?
Okay.
So hours wise, I mean, I can't put a number on it, but I can guesstimate. I mean, I probably spent at least 10 solid hours just going through actually the system checks.
Okay.
Never mind the engine start procedures, just the system checks to make sure all the systems are working properly. Probably about 10 hours.
Jeez.
And that was just to feel somewhat confident before I got in the sim. Of course, you get the sim to supplement all that,
Right.
and then you get the real plane.
But you want to know what you're doing when you get in the sim, because that's
Yeah, you're being
expensive
graded,
hours,
and
right?
it's expensive. Well, same thing with general aviation
Yeah,
flying,
absolutely.
right? So the chair flying, I knew from my naval aviation days, it's imperative. You got to do it.
Gotcha.
And so we'll talk about why it works. Here's a quote. It's and this is from I'm citing the University of North Dakota Scholarly Commons. It's an article on motor skills and mental practice, but it says mental practice or motor imagery alone usually produces around 50 to 80% of the performance gain of full physical practice on motor tasks, and is far more effective than no practice or pure verbal study. So what that basically means is just practicing with your hands and your feet and verbalizing things is much more effective than just reading a book and be like, yep, I'm good to go. Let's go hop in the cockpit and do this now, right? Some people would call that kinesthetic memory.
Right. I
Right.
believe it. It's definitely. Does that mean muscle memory is kinesthetic memory?
Yeah. And so here's an example of that. This rehearsing something with your hands and feet in the cockpit, it's not going to be the first time you do that where you feel really proficient at it. Like we were just talking about, how many times have you pulled into a parking lot, your dog's in the back, and you get into the parking lot, you pull on the parking brake, you shift it into park, you roll up the windows, and then you pop.
Emergency brake, whatever.
Yeah, and then you pop the gate back to let your dog out, right? All these things you're doing with your hands, you've done it so many times that you don't even think about it, right? It's just that automatic.
Right.
Because you've done it multiple times. Well, it's the same thing with, flying. If you practice something enough, it's almost going to become automatic. And that's why chair flying is so important. The other reason that's important is it reduces the cognitive load, so you have more bandwidth for other surprises or tasks, right?
Absolutely.
Can you remember when you first started learning to fly, just the engine startup checklist was kind of scary to you?
Yeah.
And then the radios, right? Like we'd be out practicing some maneuver, and then, or we're in the pattern, right? And it's your first time leveling off, and you have to remember power settings, your pitch, and all that, and cross-checking all your gauges and stuff. And then now Tower's talking to you, and you're like, I don't even know what to say.
360, and you're like, oh
what?
God, this is the one I practiced for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then as you got flying more, and because you practiced the pattern so many times, now when Tower calls you up, you have the mental bandwidth to respond and be like, oh yeah, I can do that because this whole flying part's gotten easy to me. Now I have more bandwidth, more CPU usage to respond to the Tower.
That's exactly how I think about it. It's fine.
It's like drinking from a fire hose, right?
Seriously, yeah. It's just.
But you knew over time it got easier, right? Because you were practicing it. Your bandwidth started opening up to learn more tasks, right?
Yeah.
So I think we beat the dead horse on why it works. Let's talk about how it saves you money, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we really care about.
Absolutely.
I mean, this whole, even just get your private pilot, what market value is probably $15,000 nowadays.
Yeah, I think it cost me around 20 grand. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I started over a couple times, so yeah.
Well, let's talk about how we can whittle that number down. Well, we already talked about chair flying, but how it saves you money. It's fewer repeats of maneuvers and earlier check rides and readiness, right? So you're going to have to repeat maneuvers less because when we were flying and we would go up and practice maneuvers that you already did, usually at the end of the lesson, do you remember I would demo the next maneuver we were going to perform? So if you're in your private pilot syllabus right now, or even your commercial syllabus, usually you're going to go up and practice the maneuvers that you kind of already know how to do. The next maneuver we're going to do, just pay attention to how I do this because of primacy, right?
Right.
You want to be taught something right the first time so you can go and recreate that. But
Absolutely.
now we're being exposed to something to see how to correctly do it. And now you have something to think upon. But also what it does is, my hope is you would go home and practice that maneuver in your chair, right? Or wherever you're doing your chair flying. And that way, honestly, if you're doing chair flying right, you'll show up to the next lesson. And let's say you're doing steep turns and you've already chair flied on the ground. What it really should be, you know you're doing chair flying right, is when you show up to the next lesson and you're doing that maneuver, it doesn't feel novelty. It doesn't feel like, hey, this is the first time I'm doing it. It's basically at that point where you're just refining it and you're getting a feel for it, right? The seat of your pants. That's how you know you did chair flying right, is you can show up to the next lesson, and when you conduct that maneuver, it's like, well, I already have the monkey skills. I already have these inputs kind of memorized. Now I just need to feel it. So there's correlation between the monkey skills and the actual feeling it in the cockpit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how you know you're doing chair flying right. And so we keep talking about why it works, why you should do it, how you, all that stuff. But let's talk about how, right? So I'll go into, kind of two different scenarios, and I'm just going to do a chair fly right here, right? Okay. So we keep talking about steep turns, and so I'll go into how I would do a steep turn. So here I am. I'm sitting at my chair, right? And here's my chair flying. So we're doing steep turns for today. I'm out in the practice area. I'm doing my clearing turns first. I'm going to roll to the left. I'm going to roll to the right. I roll back out. I'm going to look at my heading. I'm going to synchronize my heading. Okay, I'm on a 090 heading. My altitude's at 4,000, we'll call it 5,000 feet. My power, I'm going to set to 2,200 RPM. I'm going to trim it in for 90 knots. All right, check 90 knots. VSI 0. Roll into the turn. Set a little bit of power. 2-3 strokes of the trim wheel down. I'm into the turn. Captured 45. Pull or push depending on airspeed. Okay, airspeed's coming down. I'm going to push forward a little bit. Maintain 45. All right, it's holding. All right, the airspeed's coming up, let's say. All right, airspeed's coming up. Pull back a little bit. Hold 45. All right, 20 to 25 degrees of rollout heading. There's my rollout. Begin rollout. Reduce power. Nose over a little bit. All right, there's my heading. Come back into the other turn. Same thing. Wash, rinse, repeat. 20 to 25 degrees of rollout. All right, begin my rollout. Reduce power. Nose over. 90 knots. On altitude. On heading. Maneuver complete. How long did that take me?
Not long, but that
took me a minute.
Good practice.
Now when I go back in the cockpit and I do that, I got all, you saw my hands, I'm doing all that and I'm looking where I need to look. Now when I go back in the cockpit and I feel that, there's that correlation between where my hands are going and how I feel it in the cockpit, right? So here's another one, right? So you're going to do your multi-engine really soon here. I can't tell you how many times you're going to practice single engine out procedure.
Yeah.
You're going to practice it till you are blue in the face.
Yeah.
And it's important, right? Because when your engine dies, you want to make sure you're on it, right?
Right.
It's not something you're like, oh, let's figure out what's going on. Like in a jet, like your level flight, like the thing can climb on one engine, no problem, right? In a Seneca, or in a Baron, even,
or an Aztec,
even an Aztec with
right.
plenty of power, it's a problem when you lose an engine.
Yeah.
Especially if you're up at altitude, you're probably not going to have a climb gradient anymore. You'll
right.
probably just be able to maintain level flight. And if there's passengers in there, you're probably sinking, and you're probably thinking like, hey, how can I get this engine back online, right?
Right.
Or at least let's first fly the airplane and then worry about how to get the engine online. So chair flying, not only is it going to help you pass a truck ride, but it could save your life one day. So we'll do that one. And you're going to do this really soon, so pay attention.
Okay.
Flying around in the old airplane here. All of a sudden, the engine goes out. All right, I get a yaw to the right all of a sudden. All right, to the left. I'm going to step on the right ball. Okay, I bring the airplane back to level. All right, first I'm going to do the 5 up is what we call. So that's going to be mixture, prop, throttle, gear is up, flaps are up. All right, identify. My left foot is my dead foot. I'm going to verify that the left engine is dead. I'm going to take the left engine, verify torque, verify power. I get no response from the engine. I verified that the engine's dead. I'm going to raise 5 degrees angle bank to coordinate slipstream. And now I'm going to either fix or feather the airplane. So am I going to fix it? I look at oil pressure. Is the engine on fire? What happened to the airplane? If I'm going to fix it, go through that procedure, whip out the single engine restarting procedure. Okay, I'm not going to fix it because let's say the engine's on fire. All right, well, now we're going to feather the prop, or maybe it's not on fire, but we're on climb out. Feather the prop, maintain airspeed above blue line, and come back into power. I'm raising the dead. I'm raising that 5 degrees angle of bank. Okay, I'm looking for the nearest place to land, coordinate with tower, call the mayday, aviate, navigate, communicate.
Cool.
Again, a minute long, right?
Right.
Took me a minute long, and you're going to do that ad nauseum for your multi-engine.
And way less expensive than renting a multi-engine.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because that took me a minute, maybe minute and a half. In just a minute or a minute and a half in a multi-engine, you probably just burned $10.
Yeah.
Probably just burned 10.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know what the math is, but and you could have just done that for free right here at home.
Yeah.
Such when you get in the airplane, and here's another thing too: when you go and practice things in the airplane, things are a lot more nerve-wracking, right? The sounds, the vibrations, the feeling of it all. When you're sitting in a chair, you're calm and collected. So you can start from ground zero and at least start building up those monkey skills, such that when you actually get into the cockpit, things are going to slow down. You're going to have a little more bandwidth because you've already practiced it.
Exactly.
So those things that would normally make you a little bit more nervous, you're not going to be quite as nervous because, well, at least you have some of the motor connection there.
Cool.
So, I'll end this with, if you try this before your next lesson, to our viewers, if you try chair flying for your next lesson, tell us if it cut down. I'd really like to know if it cut down on how long it took you to nail a maneuver, whether it's your slow flight, your steep turns, your power off 180s, whatever it is. If you do chair fly it, let us know how it worked and if you feel like you made you more efficient at learning that maneuver. Tag us of you chair flying on social, and we'll repost a few. I think that'd be kind of cool to see people just sitting down and practicing. Yeah. I mean, it does look weird,
yeah.
But when we were in flight school, you would see guys sitting in chairs and their eyes were shut, maybe they're not shut, and they're just doing this. You know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Even before a flight, they would just be sitting in a chair and practicing. Or even we would do a hangar walk. We'd go walk out when we were practicing aerial gunnery. We'd go walk out in the hangar with our cardboard airplanes.
Yeah.
And we were practicing the maneuver just by these little cardboard airplanes before we went up and actually did these maneuvers. So it really works. So yeah, that's all I have for chair flying. So yeah, we went over a lot of things today. We went over kind of how daily life activities transpire into aviation and vice versa. We went over how driving specifically, something that we all do, transpires into aviation, and how driving can make you a better pilot and vice versa. Then we went into chair flying. But in everything we do in life, whether it's flying an airplane, driving a car, there's always going to be risk involved, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so on this next episode, what I hope to talk about is how risk you can't ever fully eliminate risk, but you can mitigate it.
Absolutely.
That's basically to say that it's not a matter of if things are going to happen, it's a matter of when they're going to happen and how you approach that. So there's a lot of theologies and philosophies on how to approach risk, but if you can have a practiced way of handling risk and you're able to apply that, well, it's just like chair flying. The more you practice risk mitigation, the more you can apply it and be comfortable with it. And that's the key thing, right? Is when you're a PIC and you have lives you're responsible for and an aircraft you're responsible for, it's being able to confidently make decisions on what you're going to do next when something goes wrong. And that's easier said than done. But if you have a process for it, it's going to make you that much more safe and confident. So that'll be on our next episode.
Cool. I'll look forward to hearing about that.
Yeah.
So.